Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast of things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Andrew Anderson.
In our show tonight, we'll take a look at what's going on at the Honolulu Aquarium in Waikiki.
We'll talk with Dr. Andrew Rossiter, director of the aquarium, and take a look at some of the displays there. We'll also meet some of the dignitaries who celebrated the opening of the new classroom there.
First, we met with Dr. Rossiter in his office on the second floor of the aquarium.
I've always thought that public aquariums have to be so much more than just a glass box showing fishes. And they should not be about entertainment either. They should be about inspiration, they should be about education, and they should be about conservation. Yeah. And when I say inspiration, it means people should go there, look at them, and get some excitement about marine life. Hopefully go outside with a greater appreciation of what's happening under the waves, and perhaps then get actively involved in conservation, etc.
Well, just one aspect of it comes to mind. When I walked around a little while ago, I saw a tank of moi. And they weren't full-size moi. They were moi that might have been grown in an aquaculture setting, because I know there have been such settings. And I wonder what your thought is. I know we can only scratch the surface here, but what your thought is about aquaculture in general and aquaculture in Hawaii.
Aquaculture in general, aquaculture in Hawaii would be the same answer. It's the only way that people are going to get fish in sufficient quantities in the future. The natural populations of fish just aren't large enough to sustain the demand.
So tell me about other public policy issues that the aquarium is like to deal with.
Public, perhaps education issues related to the marine environment. The big one that we have hands-on involvement would be a good reef visitor, and that's basically educating people how to behave when they go out on the reef. The first critical component is to let people know that corals are alive. So many people think corals are those white branching things you see in the souvenir shops, just pieces of rock. Coral is actually a living organism. The white thing you see is just the skeleton. In the wild, that skeleton is covered with a living tissue. So we have to educate people about that. The second thing we have to educate them about is to respect that living organism, because it is actually very, very delicate. Even something like a slight graze can bruise the coral, cause a scar. That can be infected with bacteria and cause the death of the entire colony. So be careful when you're on the reef. Don't tread on the corals.
Can you give me a handle on how many people visit the aquarium every year, and how many are tourists or visiting, and how many are local people?
We get around 320,000 visitors through our door every year, and for an establishment of this size, that's a sizable number. Roughly 35 to 40% are local people, so there's a lot of interest locally in what we're trying to do here.
Is it repeat visits, or do they just come once and come back years later?
It varies. When I first came here, I was really struck by how many people my age and older said, wow, I haven't been to the aquarium since I was in high school. Has it changed? And I hope so, and I hope for the better. But more recently, since we've started family programs and things, grandparents come with their grandkids, and they make regular visits, sometimes 2-3 times a month. So it's nice. There's a lot of familiar faces around here. You know, we're 107 years old, but in 2005, there was a questionnaire sent round to the directors of public aquariums in the US, and they were asked for their top 4 aquariums. So this is a professional perspective. And the top 4, not necessarily in this order, were Monterey, which I still think is the best aquarium in the world, the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, I think it was the New England Aquarium, and ourselves. So we're obviously held in very high regard by our peers, and we beat out, if that's the right word, many of the mega $1 million huge aquariums on the mainland. So we're very proud of that.
Then Dr. Rossiter gave us a tour around the aquarium.
This is our coral propagation area. This is our coral ark. It contains Some of the tanks contain South Pacific corals, some of them are over 25 years old, and others contain threatened or endangered species of Hawaiian coral. And the idea with this is, if it's threatened in the wild, we take a few small pieces, we grow them here, we propagate them, so there's many, many colonies coming off one. And then if there is a disaster in the wild, there's a reservoir here, a bank if you like, which can be used to repopulate a reef. So this is the business part of the aquarium. So we've got protein skimmers, filters, pumps, all the stuff that together keeps all the animals alive. Okay, now we're coming into Gallery 1, and this is South Pacific Marine Communities. These are fishes that are found in various places in the South Pacific, not necessarily in Hawaii. So this highlights several different habitats found throughout the South Pacific. So the first one is this, which is a typical mangrove type habitat, very common on the smaller South Pacific islands. Mangroves do occur in Hawaii, but they're not native. They were introduced. In here we've got monos, raccoon, butterfly. On the bottom is a carpet anemone. There are clownfish in there. The large fish, silver with the black, is a fish called an archer fish. But for fish like the clownfish, they've evolved so that they can coexist in close proximity with the anemone. And they now have a symbiotic relationship where the fish and the anemone rely upon one another.
Over millions of years.
Yes, yes. So most of the corals that you see on the reef are what are called hard corals, and they've got a calcium exoskeleton, the white skeleton inside. But in shallow and lagoon areas, which are sheltered from the wave action, there is another type of coral called a soft coral. And they're essentially a coral that is held erect by water pressure. If you look at this branching one in front of us here, you can see some of it looks brown. That area is where the tentacles are out, the polyps are out and feeding. And then the whitish parts at the back, that's simply because the tentacles, the polyps are retracted. They're hiding inside. So the fishes in here are, most people know that the top predators in the sea are the sharks and the jacks. And then below that, the predator rank is mainly these fishes here. So we've got types of groupers, types of snapper, pufferfish. It's related to stonefish. It's called a devil scorpion fish.
And that's poisonous.
That's poisonous. It's found around here, especially on shallow reefs. So if anybody does go walking on the reef, make sure you wear decent shoes with thick soles. 2 giant clams.
Yeah.
Probably the largest and oldest in captivity anywhere in the world.
Is that right? Right there. It's huge. It's like 2 feet across.
We've had them over 25 years. One of them was about this big when it came in.
We also attended the opening of a new classroom at the aquarium and spoke with some of the dignitaries who were there, including Andy Weiner and Alan Tom of NOAA and Ceila Smith of the University of Hawaii.
We're here this morning to open our new classroom. Funding was provided exclusively through the good offices of NOAA. So basically the classroom was run down. It was almost non-functional. It was very uncomfortable to sit. And it's now changed into what you see in front of you here. So thank you so much for that. Hopefully it will continue to cater for tens of thousands of students and adults every year.
I wear 2 hats now. I'm the Director of External Affairs, and I also am the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships. And one of our key partners that I've worked a lot with over the last year in particular are zoos, aquariums, and other museum institutions where we're able to partner up and do the kind of work that's happening here. I've been able to go all over the country on behalf of NOAA, and one of the things that I have really been able to figure out quickly is that in Hawaii, we probably have more literacy about oceans than just about any place else in the country, if not any place that I've been to. And I think that the linkage between us and the ocean is something that's obvious to people that are here, but it's something that people in Washington, D.C. a lot of times need to be reminded of, and I feel that's part of my job.
This is really neat because kids love it. They love to look at things. And does anybody know what we have, what we're looking at on screen here, it's actually a mouth of mushroom coral. And what we do is we train our volunteers, and they look at this, and it's we get to feed the coral. Corals have mouths, so we'll put a brine shrimp in there, and it'll actually bring it down to its mouth and eat it. And so we got the screen, and we got the equipment, the microscopes that we purchased, and all of this will help the students learn better.
The Waikiki Aquarium has been a tremendous partner of NOAA. You know, we look at this as one of the best way of educating the public about the importance of oceans, and to really provide an ability to teach kids and other visitors about why marine protection and why we need to care about the oceans, why we need to care about marine life. And so over the years, through the Marine Sanctuary Foundation, you know, that partnership has been something that we've really valued. Way more people go through the doors of those institutions than go to sporting events, which is, when you look at the numbers, it's like by a factor that is hard to even calculate. So when you get people that come through the doors here, you have an opportunity to educate them about why the oceans are important. And I think that a classroom like this represents an opportunity to begin teaching the next generation about that. And like I said earlier, I think one of the advantages to that is, I think as you teach the kids, they become some of the best teachers of their parents. They start to recognize the importance of the resource and start to recognize what they want to have happen in order to maintain what Hawaii is about. And I think that all of us that live here, you know, to one degree or another, you know, we treasure the ocean. And so having a facility like this that imparts that sort of feeling is something that's really invaluable. So, you know, Andy Lassiter has been a terrific ambassador for the aquarium. The last time that I came to the aquarium, there was a big hole where the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands exhibit is, and now to see that and to see this classroom is I think terrific. I'm pleased with it, and it's been a great partnership. I work for an agency where science underpins everything that we do, and the work that we do is relevant every single day of everybody's life. When people get up in the morning and they look at the weather, that's us. When they when they go to the stores and they're looking at buying fish that is from a sustainable fisheries in the United States, that's coming from us. When they're out surfing on those reefs, that's work that we're involved in doing. So we are an agency that has a mission that I think is hard not to fall in love with. You know, I think every day that I get to deal with issues that impact Hawaii in particular, it's great, but the impact that we have across the country and across the world is profound, and it's been a wonderful opportunity.
So how is NOAA going to deal with marine mineral exploration? You know, already in the Gulf. I mean, look what happened in the Gulf. You know, NOAA has jurisdiction there, and yet we had an oil well blow up, and we couldn't stop it for months.
We have to have these problems so that we can find solutions, you know.
Or it brings it up. It's like, wow, we never even thought about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's really looked at, okay, what if we find some minerals somewhere off of Loihi that can help put our computers together, and we can't get it anywhere else because the other countries are using it for themselves. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And you know, again, I'm not an expert or know much about this, but I understand that dredging for stuff like this is a very toxic kind of industry.
Sure, it is on land anyway.
Yeah. So are we going to have zones for that? But so you have one area where you dig up this stuff, but what about the plume of sediment that you've dug up?
Sure, and you know it's going to spread.
It's going to spread. Yeah.
So maybe but in the end, we're probably going to need these resources in some way.
Our world's getting smaller and smaller. Our resources are finite.
Yeah.
And so what if, you know, energy is found, picking for example, probably a bad one, but let's say geothermal power on the Big Island, and we need it in Honolulu. And you're going to have to run some kind of cable across the ocean floor.
Yeah.
And your question, well, what does that do? It's more than just laying a cable on the ground. Is this cable emitting any kind of electromagnetic field and all this other kind of stuff? Well, that's only, I'm sure, the tip of the iceberg. There's things out there we've never even thought about.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there's going to be faster ships going out there, and I'm sure some kind of inter-island transportation on the water is going to come up again because we're an island state.
I hope so, actually.
Well, the thing about Maui, which was interesting, is Maui, like the other islands, didn't want the super ferry, but after a year, people were using it. I don't know who they were, or they looked like local people going back and forth. So clearly there's a need, and so I'm sure this issue will come up.
So you wake up every morning saying, what new issues and special scientific delights will come my way today?
Yeah, you can look at it that way, yes. Well, no 2 days are ever alike. One day we'll have a tsunami warning, and then the next day, some great event like this of opening an exhibit that took years to design. So
One thing is clear, Alan. We'll have to talk again.
I look forward to it. You'll have to come to Maui, so
Okay.
I can show you our center.
Well, I guess I would also ask you, where do you think it's going? Where do you think, for example, the botany department is going, where you're going? What's it going to look like in 5 years?
That's a tremendous question. We have a new dean for my college. We will meet with him for the first time in the first week of the academic calendar. I look to him to help set a chart that I hope will reinvest resources in the study of native species. And that may sound kind of odd, for so much of my work is actually on invasive species, but that really is a band-aid to get them taken care of so that we can come back and focus on the outstanding communities of species that we have that are part of our flora and fauna that are only found here. If we don't take care of those endemic species, and we have a tremendous diversity of them, we lose, and it compromises us as a community of people, as well as a community of scientists, as well as the diversity and stability of that ecosystem.
Yeah. And if you lose one, does that put the other at risk?
It potentially does, sure,
Yeah.
because if you, as we saw with many of the animal plant pollination, if you lose the pollinator, then you have to go
Sure.
in with a paintbrush and pollinate by hand.
They have relationships.
Absolutely.
Just the way you have a relationship with the aquarium.
Right.
So tell me about that, and tell me about how that has changed and will change.
I have to compliment Dr. Rossiter as the head who has allowed this kind of interaction with the university botany department. Me pushing my way in, so to speak, actually being invited to come in and use this footprint as a way of building a community for the residents in the area.
What do you think of the classroom here? How does that play into the strategy?
This is terrific. And we've already, the introductions were underway, we've already schemed to bring Jefferson Elementary kids over
right.
here
That's
to
perfect.
use this
I
facility
can see them now. I can see them.
with little T-shirts that say Jefferson Elementary and Waikiki Aquarium.
I love it.
So I think that's how we take the Hawaiian ethic of managing for the future. What's needed are leaders to come in and say, okay, now we're going to do this over here because it's really important.
Yeah.
When we've done that in the past with Cindy Hunter and the Nature Conservancy and DAR, we've had 200 people show up on a Saturday morning and help us remove. We've taken out 100 tons of this non-edible seaweed that's out in Waikiki.
You really are committed right down to the physical labor.
We have to.
Yeah.
We got there only hours before the aquarium opened its new Northwestern Hawaiian Islands exhibit. Brand new, and the biggest and very likely the best of all. We didn't get to see it, but we heard plenty about it, and now that it's opened, we can only urge you to go see it yourself.
It was a great visit and a great tour, and we were very impressed with the displays and the new classroom and all the people who were there to celebrate its opening.
The aquarium is over 100 years old and is alive and well in Waikiki, with wonderful and creative exhibits showing us so many important aquatic animals from our environment in Hawaii and the Pacific.
We can only recommend that everyone, and kids of all ages, visit the aquarium soon and on a regular basis to learn about what's going on in our oceans.
And now, here's our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
Next month, on September 22nd, we'll present a luncheon panel program called Impact Investing, dealing with socially responsible investing and the new B Corporation, which Hawaii has adopted to help make this possible.
And now, here's Bill Spencer with this week's Spensation.
Well, I was real intrigued by the interview with our tech icon to be, Sunny Bagwalia. He's the new IT director for the state, and boy, does he have a tough job. He clearly has impeccable credentials. He's tackled huge IT problems previously, and I think the way he characterized Hawaii's situation was very interesting.
What?
He said our IT infrastructure is like a car with 500,000 miles on it, which means it's old and it's been used a lot.
And it's breaking down.
And it's breaking down.
Now he comes with credentials, experience in the government, good pick, you know, and the fact that he's from outside the state to me is a positive because he brings fresh air, you know, he brings out of the box thinking, out of state thinking, if you will. All of that experience he's had now, he can bring to us. The arbitrage of ideas, if you will.
That's right.
And there's so much to be done. I mean, it's a late thing. This should have happened a long time ago.
Well, this is, I think he has a real opportunity now too, because we're at the dawn of cloud computing. And that gets us away from the infrastructure headaches, the maintenance of computer systems, having to have computer facilities, and there's a real opportunity there.
Yeah, it's a perfect time for it. And hopefully with his experience and his familiarity with the equipment and, the newer techniques like the cloud, he'll be able to do it cheap. And that's the problem because we don't have the cash money.
That's right.
So we'll have to find a way to do it.
They can't afford all that iron. But I think the other thing that it was sensational about this was the fact that this job and the funding for this job came from the private sector.
Yes.
$3 million from Hawaii Community Foundation. What an incredible, good example of a public-private partnership. And I think this should set the stage for more of these types of relationships where the government can get the help of the private sector to solve problems that are, virtually unsolvable through the bureaucratic process. I think the telework and the using telecommunications for that, it's proven effective. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go
wasting the
electronic.
time.
Let's go computer. Let's think tech right now.
Think tech, Jay.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.
And here's this week's episode about the adventures of our co-working entrepreneurs, Richung Fujihira, Hassan Scott, and Tony Stanford. This week, they had a special event at the Box Jelly called Ignite. Well, I got to say, you guys, that thing on Thursday night was a knockout. Ignite.
Well, I think our team was really great. And the overall organizer event was Christine Kuroki from AIGA. And she kind of came up with the idea and kind of introduced it to us over polo. And so we're at the field, and she's like, hey, we should do this. And it had never been done in Hawaii before. And for those who don't know, Ignite are short talks. They're similar to what a TED Talk would be, but they're condensed down into 5 minutes where the slides move on their own.
Every 15 seconds.
Yeah, every 15 seconds, so it's a kind of high energy.
I thought that the venue was an important part of setting the tone. It reminded me of the 60s in Greenwich Village, you'll excuse the expression. Mm-hmm. It had a Beat Generation quality about it because there was a community there. You somehow created a community of interest.
As Ray said, we had both in the tech world, so we had a lot of developers and a lot of programmers, and then we had a lot of designers and graphic artists alike, and then we had a few business people in there. So we had some people, we also had everyone that are in the pillar world of co-working. We had R&D, International Terminal, and then we also had Greenhouse down there.
You had a capacity, and you hit the capacity, right?
Yep.
That's impressive.
And so that was the biggest event we did to date, and we could even fit a little bit more. So it was it went off well without a hitch.
Yeah.
So what does it teach you?
I think one of the key takeaways for myself was the power of partnerships. You know, because working with AIGA, working with High Capacity, it really brought in an audience that we couldn't have gotten necessarily, you know, on our own if we just like talked.
Think this will have beneficial effects for the business?
Absolutely.
How?
Well, we already have. I just got a tweet about 3 minutes ago of someone who wants to book the space from that event. During the event, we were trending in Honolulu, so that means like there were a lot of people talking about us on Twitter, and it was like rose up to the top.
You'll do it again?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we definitely would.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii.
Oceanit, another local tech company, is one of Hawaii's largest and most diversified science and engineering companies.
Okay, Andrew, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Andrew Anderson does, and all of our other hosts too.
For lots more ThinkTech videos, and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, or for internship or volunteer opportunities with ThinkTech, visit thinktechhawaii.com.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Andrew Anderson. I've had a wonderful time working for ThinkTech this summer, and I'm going back to college on the mainland tomorrow. Aloha, everyone.